Welcome to Signs of the Times. I'm Dr. Willard Register, and we have one more program. Thank you for sticking by for 6 weeks, Dr. Noyes. We have been enlightened, but today I want these people to know that what you're talking about is exposing spiritualistic practices in healing, in the healing arts. You may run across some of these that are not exactly traditional, and they end up being spiritualistic. So you haven't covered all 654 pages, Doctor.
Not yet.
And yet you're going to leave today.
It's been a fast 6 weeks.
It's been a fast 6 weeks, but I hope the people will take a look at the screen, get your web page, find out how to buy this book, and give you a call. $19.95. But today, you're going to talk about a word that you've educated me here during the past 5 weeks. You've educated me that this word has a big, broad meaning. Divination.
Yes.
Means more than just one thing.
Hundreds, probably thousands of different methods of divination.
So you have 28 minutes to tell the audience all about it.
Okay. Well, let's take a look at a definition first. And I got this definition from the Catholic Encyclopedia. I looked at other encyclopedias, other dictionaries, but this I felt was the clearest and the best.
Okay.
Divination is a form of occultism wherein the person uses objects such as tea leaves, crystal ball, tarot cards, Ouija board, or any superstitiously interpreted object as the means of attempting to gain or elicit knowledge or information that is beyond ordinary human intelligence.
That's a pretty good definition.
It's very good.
Yeah,
yes.
that is.
And that I found in the library, the Catholic Encyclopedia. And so we start from there. Let's see, we have a Bible in all of our homes. What does the Bible say about divination?
Not a good thing.
And it has a lot of verses on divination. Let's take one or two. You've heard of Deuteronomy 18?
Right.
There's verses 9 through 14 is a whole series of advice that God gave to Israel just before they were to go into the Promised Land. He's saying, I'm eliminating these Canaanites because of these things that I'm telling you not to do. And divination was definitely one of them. The other things we've been talking about came under that category. Many different names were used trying to cover everything in witchcraft. And this is witchcraft. And so divination is to try to find some information, an answer that I don't have any other ways, and it falls generally into this occultism. And here's this verse. There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire. That must have been fire walking. Or uses divination, or an observer of times. We're dealing with astrology there, or an enchanter, or a witch. He says, you're not to do this. This is why I'm eliminating this whole group of people in this land.
That you're going to chase out, and this is why I'm letting you chase it out.
That's right. And so we look another place in the Bible, 2 Kings 17, and there are many verses. I just picked a few, a couple actually. They sacrificed their sons and daughters in the fire. They practiced divination, sorcery, and sold themselves to do evil in the eyes of the Lord, provoking him to anger. A pretty strong pronouncement. You're not to do it. God is angry when we get involved in that. And oh, how many varieties there are of divination. And so we go a bit more. Have you heard the word dowsing?
Yes, I have. And I've been eagerly waiting for you to tell me about it.
This little book is written by a man by the name of Ben Hester. He lived down in Arlington, California, near Riverside, and he wrote this book, Dowsing, an Expose of Hidden Occult Forces.
Interesting.
Writing on this subject, because there's many different ways, I came across this book, and it enticed me because he tells the story where he was an ardent believer in water witching. He was just absolutely religious about it, and he had a couple friends, all of them of different denominations, Christian denominations, that didn't believe in it. So a big argument occurred. And that started an 8-year foray of research on these three men.
Okay.
And this book is the end result of that 8 years of research. The culmination in the end is interesting. He comes back and he joins what the Bible says about it, but he was in firm belief in it. So this to me was the simplest and the best one on dowsing. What is dowsing?
Does the Bible talk about against dowsing?
Yeah, we're going to have a verse here in a bit that doesn't use that word.
That's what I was wondering.
Doesn't have that word, but there's, we'll get to that shortly. One of the things we think about, here you see a picture up there. I've had drawn this picture, which is similar to his. It's not the same, but it's to show that particular book and to bring on the subject. There's another way of dowsing. You can take a pendulum, and let's talk about pendulums first. Pendulums is any object that you can hang from and it'll swing. Or if you hold a stick like a wand, this can be a pendulum. So a magic stick, a wand, can be a pendulum. And they've been used as long as they can find. This man says at least 500 years of written material on this subject that they researched, that they went into the libraries. And it goes back, the oldest knowledge we have of using a pendulum is an emblem found in China, 2,200 some BC, using a pendulum to find knowledge.
I have a Christian family that are good friends of mine. I grew up with them. They got married and they moved, but I went to visit them one day and they showed me this, like this picture that you have there, that they took this pendulum with them every time they go to the market, and they put it over the food.
Yes.
And if the food is good, it rotates in the right direction, and clockwise. If the food is bad and they shouldn't buy it, it rotates in the counterclockwise. Amazing. But I couldn't convince them. I mean, I really went to work on them because I thought, right off, this is satanic. They wouldn't budge. They swore by this thing. I swore at it, and they swore by it.
Okay. Well, this is really true. Dowsing can be done on a map for gold, for metal, iron, any type of metal, for water on a map 1,000 miles distance.
Really?
Yeah, and be accurate and find it. Actually, Bermuda has several wells doused from New York. They had drilled and drilled in Bermuda, couldn't find water. They doused on a map in New York and drilled those spots, and they got beautiful wells.
I was in Thailand, and a fellow that lived in the same house that I did was trying to find water for Cambodia. And he said, I need somebody that will do some dowsing for me. And I said, I have a friend. He's right here in Oregon, a friend of mine in the church that I go to. And I flew him over there and he found 18, this guy had never been able to find water. This guy found 18 sites as they traveled between right on the border of Thailand and on Cambodia, 13 wells with water.
What's interesting in this book, in their study, they went to well drillers, they went through the literature, and they said the book's written promoting and in favor of the dowsing.
This book is?
No, that the books that they read that were in favor didn't tend to expose the books or talk about the books that were against it and exposed some things.
Okay.
And so it was on both sides. There was a problem, he said, in that regards. But yet you can tell fantastic stories about what happened in dowsing. And let's look at what the Bible said. It says, they consult a wooden idol and are answered by a stick of wood. So they pray to the idol for an answer, and a dowsing stick or a pendulum gives them their answer.
Yeah.
But the Bible is very strong about divination. What other things might we think of as divination? Have you ever heard of iridology?
I have.
Yeah, very common. And people have strong beliefs in that.
Looks very complex,
But
that picture.
is that divination?
It is.
Science-wise has no answer that anything can be found, because in iridology it's supposed to be that you can tell past disease, future disease, by looking at the iris of the eye. And one iris, one side for one side of the body, one from the other. But what's interesting, one man studying this traveled around the world. He bought 20 different charts at various places in the world, and none of those charts were exactly the same as the other charts. So this so-called science has some problems on that part. And it goes back in time, clear back into 1670 was some of the first writings on iridology done in Germany. But this idea is that you look at the iris and it will tell us where disease is elsewhere in the body. This is one form of divination. Now, the people that are doing that do not like to hear that word applied to it.
Divination?
Yes.
They don't like it.
They believe that it's a true science.
I see.
And they do it in honesty. But when this has been put to the studies by taking pictures of irises with people who have known certain type of disease, the end results, and this has been done in a big way with big numbers, the end results is no better than guessing, looking at a person and guessing if they have a disease or not, or what. And so that hasn't worked out too well, and it's not made some people very happy. But this is very popular, especially among young ladies and women, especially people not too much in the true medical. It was made popular by a Bernard Jensen, who was a chiropractor, now deceased. That was also a naturopath, but he wrote books that are of this occult system. He was into this whole type of therapy, and so he's the one that made that popular. Let's go a little further. Applied kinesiology, have you heard that word?
I have.
That's where you are supposedly a muscle will become weak if you have a disorder in a certain area. Let's say if I have a bottle of medicine, if it's the right medicine for me, I hold my arm out or a certain muscle, then somebody will push down on that. And if my arm is weak and can't hold, it's a sign that perhaps that's the medicine that I need, or vice versa, a variety of things. But it's taking a muscle group, applying it to a certain part of the body or to a deficiency of vitamin or mineral, and saying by testing the strength of the muscle, we can know whether you are low in selenium or low and need something else. This is a very popular.
So that's the diagnostic method.
That's it. Applied kinesiology, yes. That muscles have this correspondence with the internal organs, and if the muscle's weak, it gives you a clue as to the problem. Now, where did that come from? Well, we'll take a look here. George Goodhart, a chiropractic doctor, in 1964. He blended the theory of innate intelligence. Chiropractic believes that this great energy is called, they call it innate. And that was the beginning of their profession, is applying that. But that in 1964, by psychic means, he was given the information for the applied kinesiology therapy, according to the books.
He was given it. Where did it come from?
The spirit world.
Spirit world?
Mm-hmm. That's as I read. And
yeah,
that's
I understand.
The contact on that part. Formed by psychic means, 1964. But this is very popular. My brother went into a dentist, and he was going to check which tooth was needing pulled by kinesiology, applied kinesiology. Kinesiology is a true science of the movement of muscle about joints.
Right.
This is applied, quite different. I needed to make that clear, because otherwise we cause the physical therapist will be down on us.
A little trouble, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Now, so I've shown a picture here. They can test for allergies, vitamin deficiencies, minerals. Oh, maybe you want to select a homeopathy therapy, and so you use a pendulum. Or this is a form of pendulum in a sense. As I put up there, select a tooth to pull on there. So this Why it's become so popular in these years, I don't know. But it's widespread. But it's nothing but a form of divination, as I understand it. Let's look a little bit at the psychometry, radionics. Have you heard that term?
I haven't.
Okay. This is doing, instead of a pendulum, we use a machine. It's a pendulum use by machine. People like automatic machines.
Oh, that's better seller.
Yes. And they have come in big things with dials turning and arms going back and forth, needles going back and forth. And some of these are nothing but a form of divination. But given the little... So the theory is that all matter radiates impressions, and that these machines can pick up those electronic impressions that our body is radiating, or some part. That's the concept behind it. And so a machine is a very common, and there's a variety of them. Psychometry is the measurement on this part. So we take the machines, and let me read here. Clairvoyant sensitivity, whereby the psychic touching an object can pick up impressions of the life and experiences of the object's owner. So I pick up this, I give it to somebody, he takes it to a healer, he feels it. Now he says, I get the impressions, or he'll put it on a machine, I get the impressions of he's got this type of disorder, disease, and he may make a diagnosis, and he may at the same time, over distance, send me back the right vibrations to correct the disease. And so this is how some of this is used, the radionics, on that part.
So you can do that from a distance?
Yes. They tell me they can. I've not seen it happen.
I understand.
Yeah, but that's a practice. You can be 1,000 miles around the world, actually. And maybe you take a blood specimen, and you can take it and put it in a machine, and you don't have to draw any more blood specimens from the patient in the hospital. That machine will keep telling you day by day all the changes in the individual. This is being sold to the public by certain practitioners.
Really?
Yeah. And that's...
Now, before, we're almost to run out of these 6 programs.
Yes, out of time.
Out of time.
Even for this one.
I don't know. I haven't seen yet. But I want to ask you a question that you need to educate me. And maybe our viewers have had this question during the past 6 weeks. Why do people believe this stuff? What is so fascinating about this stuff? Why would I buy into this stuff?
Sometimes these things are true.
You mean they work?
Sometimes they're true. Most of the time they're not, but sometimes. And if they are, then that person sold out it unequivocally.
Right.
Yeah.
Forever.
And this is the power we're talking about, the deceptive power behind. This is not just a joke thing. This, I believe, and you believe, that there is an intelligent power that is trying to deceive us and get us to give our allegiance to the wrong God. Exactly. That's what I believe is behind it. And this is such a widespread method of doing that. And there are variety: black box, zapping machine, cell-comm system, electronic acupuncture, Rife machine, Royal Rife machine, and various electronic apparatuses. Some of them are nothing more than a voltmeter, just like I have in my toolbox. And the more I press on the skin, the better contact, the more the needle goes over. Most of them are of that nature. Simple toolbox instrument, but in a big fancy machine.
And if I'm naive enough, I'll pay you.
Yeah.
To have you tell me what that meter...
And if I'm greedy enough, I'll take it. Okay, the theory. The instrument may diagnose by detecting deranged frequency. This frequency business comes out of this occult. It's not in the general science that our body is giving these frequencies. There will be a lot of people oppose that comment, but that's true. And it may administer treatment by sending back frequency 1,000 miles or more. And distance, of course, not a barrier. Past and future can be diagnosed, discerned, and treated. The research, there was a particular doctor in England, a man that was really involved deeply in this. He got the first black box, so-called, that had the dials that found all these frequencies. Where did he get his research? From Spirit World.
Really?
From the spirits. I have the quotation here in the reference on that part, according to what I read. Yes, radionic
well, that doesn't
research.
surprise you, though, does it?
No, it fits right into it. And now, the degree of ability to do this depends upon the depth of the individual, his connection to the occult, the depth that he is involved in this. The more so, the better he can do the job.
More successful.
Yes. And this information comes from certain, from the Theosophy Society. Here we have their comments about this, that they say, don't give too much attention to the machines and try to explain it on physics that we know, but it comes on a different basis. Here we have the pendulum, the divining rod, radionic machines. Diagnostic or therapeutic results depend upon the psychic capacity of the operator. This is from an organization that is the deep in the psychic. They were the foundation and the forerunners of the New Age movement. They're saying this themselves, that the diagnostic or therapeutic results depend upon the psychic capacity of the operator, or instrument, or pendulum, divining rod, or machine. Equal results can be obtained without the use of any instrument or operator if the operator has knowledge of the patient's condition. If he's good enough, he doesn't need the machine.
Right.
See? And that claims made that methods are based on physical science and its known laws cannot be substantiated. And they say it's actually detrimental to their movement to try to make that claim when it isn't there. But lots of my friends try to explain to me how the electronics somehow is making this hazel stick dip. Okay, all right. Acts 19:19. You've heard that verse. And a number of those who practiced magic arts brought their books together and burned them in the sight of all. And they counted the value of them and found it came to 50,000 pieces of silver.
Boy, they had a bunch of books.
Yeah, this was in the old town of Ephesus. I've been in that town.
Right.
They have the ruins there, and they're restoring that, and I thought of that at the time. Here's where they brought these books, vast amount of expense, and they burned them. Why didn't they give them to somebody? Because then somebody else be contaminated with the knowledge.
No, because they had gotten the truth.
Yeah, and what did these books tell them? Well, we have an individual that wrote on this that had knowledge. Those treatises on divination contained rules and forms of communication with evil spirits. They were of the regulations and the worship of Satan, directions for soliciting his help and obtaining information from him. So back there in the Bible, not only many places does it talk about not to get involved in divination. Here we're told that what the people in Ephesus did was actually an attempt to make contact with the devil on that part.
Which obviously they had.
Let me share with you a little story here in the last moment of what happened at my home. I had a patient in the office that came in at bursitis. And I injected it. He came back later and he was well. And he says, "You ruined my bobbing arm." I said, "What do you mean, your bobbing arm? You're pain-free?" "Yeah." "Well," he says, "that's when I do my bobbing with." "What's bobbing?" He came up to my house to show me. He took a long wire, heavy wire, put a curl on the end, and held the wire on his knee, and it extended out, and then he put a light bulb in the curl. And that wire began to go up, and he'd go out and sit at a place he was going to find water for me. It would go up and down, and he was counting a foot each time. Then it would find water, it would go back and forth, and how far it went back and forth told him how much water. Then it would go up and down to the next level of water. And I'm there with my eyes bugging out. I said, "Wow, the devil must be there pushing that thing." That was my thoughts. And so I asked him, "Why here in the United States when you do that, every bob is a foot, but in Europe it's a meter?" He looked at me and never gave me an answer. A little while later, a relative who is a dowser came to my home, so I put the question to him. Well, he said, "That's not a problem. You just decided in your mind before you do it what your measurements are going to be." And this is what we have in this divination. Whether the pendulum swings one way or the other, or whether it swings back and forth, or whether it makes a circle, you decide.
That's what you decide beforehand.
Yeah. Explain that through electronics.
Yeah.
On there. It's electric currents, all right, but
Sure.
It's different than many people think. And so we have come now to the end of this divination. There is no end we could go and stories I could tell you. But in my understanding, in my belief, we need to stay away from the pendulum or any machine that's similar.
Yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time, Doctor, to come and spend all this time with us to tell us about stuff that most generally people are not knowledgeable on, and sometimes if you start to talk to them about it, they don't even want to hear it.
The best way to get an argument is to deal with water witching. If you start there,
listen,
you just want to kind of back up and run.
I already have a family that I flew to Thailand, and they got all that water over there. Yeah. You could never convince them that it doesn't work.
Yeah, and it may well. But when we read the Bible, we're told we're not to do that. We're to go to the Lord in prayer.
All right, I'm still pushing Dr. Noyes' book because you need to read it to get the facts on all of these various modalities. So on the TV screen will be his webpage and methods that you can get a hold of this book. I urge you to spend $20 and get this and share it with your friends and your neighbors. You may make some friends and you may lose some friends, but that's okay. I'm sure that you're aware of that. So Dr. Noyes, I'm going to ask you to offer a word of prayer, and then you're going to go driving on your way home.
Yes.
So I hope you have a safe journey.
Thanks for the invitation here. Our Father today, dismiss us with your blessings. Protect as travel is done, and continue to bless this location, this television station, that they may shed the word of God to the people that are actively searching for truth. In Jesus' name, amen.